Now, this is an interesting question. So I think last time I asked what your favorite moment was, and we were going to chapter 4. Both of us agreed chapter 4. You for the ending, me for the Hidari reveal. Favorite scene is a different question. This chapter, in all of Two Blue Vortex, had my favorite scene, that being the conversation between Mitsuki and Ada. I loved that scene. I adored that scene.
I enjoyed that scene. I don't think that's my favorite scene, and I think it's a good scene for them to have had for both Mitsuki and Ada. So it was good to be in there. I'm sure, to be honest, I expect the average fan doesn't like that scene because they don't want to listen to Ada and Mitsuki talk about love. But realistically, the stuff they talked about was kind of is needed for their characters, and it's stuff I wanted to see just because of like how I've been looking at Ada's. Because honestly speaking, Mitsuki said, I haven't made the video yet, but Mitsuki basically said what I've been thinking about Ada to a large extent, which is how Ada basically resembles a moon-like character. Just look at her eyes, the moon.
Yeah.
But in her case, she's wrongfully attached to Kawaki like a son, similar to Mitsuki with Boruto, except in Mitsuki's case, he's going to realize Boruto's his actual son. He's already kind of gone to that point. Whereas Ada, I'm skeptical about whether she will ever break away from Kawaki's son, who's not really a son at all. You know, we all know Kawaki sucks in that sense. I'm not fully sure whether or not she's going to switch to Boruto, switch to Sarada, whatever the hell. Okay, personally, I think what Ada needs is real friends, and that would be Sarada and Sumire. The problem is, especially in Sarada's case, I don't think she's being the true friend that she could be. Sumire, I actually think, could do it. Sarada isn't doing it, though, yet, at least, from what we've seen. But I think what Ada really needs is a true friend. She doesn't need the boyfriend. She just needs a friend to be her son. But I'm not sure if she's ever going to figure it out.
It really sucks for you that you drew that comparison already between Ada and Mitsuki, because I've seen absolutely nobody even mention the parallel there. So like you would have been like coming across as like some narrative genius drawing these crazy connections. Meanwhile, the chapter just now is just spelling it out for you. It sort of ruined your whole thing, because now it's like, oh, well, obviously he's going to talk about it. It's like the core content of the chapter, and it's the boring part. Like, oh, like I'm just going to tune out now that he's talking about it. Whereas before, people would be like engaged, like, oh my God, I never thought about that before. Like, oh my God, he's right. This is crazy. But now it's just gone.
I mean, I'm still gonna talk about it. I agree. I mean, this is where I kind of am pissed about a lot of shit. I mean, it's I've been getting lucky with some stuff but I mean, I do need to figure out what I'm. So I have like 30 video topics. Like I started. That is one of them. Everything I said, I've already written down. Like I have the notes on my phone. Like I just never finished the video.
So the difference between this and something like a theory is this isn't just some shot in the dark or something that's like plot relevant but doesn't actually matter. Like all the people that guessed the foreshadowing of Akabe being, or I guess Delta being Amato's daughter. Like woohoo, give yourself a clap on the back for that one. Is that, wait, what? A pat on the back for that? Give yourself a clap on the back for that. Okay, anyways. So no, this is like actual narrative analysis of you just have to like solve it. Like it's all there for you and it's looking backwards rather than just guessing at some future event based on what we have now. Like anyone can be like, oh wow, I wonder if like Boruto's gonna come around and fight Hidari. That's not a narrative thing. That either happens or it doesn't, and you don't look smart or cool whether you guess it, and you don't look dumb or whatever if it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. It's just non-existent, just gone. In this case, I mean, you just look cool because you didn't just guess it. You drew the comparison. You did the work. It's funny because I was watching what's it called, like How to Be what's the millionaire show where you have to guess the questions until you become one? You know,
I think there's a lot of those. But,
well, yeah, one of them. It's like the main one. I was watching some like guy like review it or whatever, and he's like, there's a difference between the questions of like a question where you can actually solve it compared to a question where it's just random, like, oh, who is this Hungarian pianist? And they just throw up 4 names you've never seen. Like, that's not knowledge. Compared to something like, oh, can you divide these 2 fractions, 3 out of 6 divided by like 4 out of 8? What is that? And just throw it. Like, that's something you can solve. If you miss that, it feels like it's you're to blame. You're the problem for not knowing that, because you could and you should, compared to something like the Hungarian pianist, where nobody knows that unless you just happen to know it coincidentally randomly.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with some of the stuff you said. What I will say that with the motto thing though is it's not a random guess. First of all, like for me, I was predicting from the beginning, like that I think Amato Delta was a clone of Amato's daughter, and that his plan was to revive his daughter. And I was, at least in terms of what he said, spot on every step of the way, because Amato gave all the clues in his dialogue. For example, in chapter 57, when he's doing the pills thing with Naruto, he basically says implicitly, I haven't given up on my daughter either. He basically tells Naruto that indirectly. And so I was like, all right, you look at the scene with the wish scene with Jigen and a lot of other things anyway, and that's how I came to that conclusion. Yeah. It was in the story, it wasn't a random
Well,
guess.
I wasn't calling out that
things,
specific scenario example or what. I'm just using it as one random example. In fact, you could argue it's a bad example. Like something we haven't got yet, probably be better. Like, oh, I wonder if Konohamaru will get eaten. Well, either he does or he doesn't. We don't know. It's just a shot in the dark, and there's no foreshadowing to predict it either way. You can make a guess, but it either happens or it
that one doesn't have foreshadowing yet. Technically, the Ada one didn't have foreshadowing. It was just a symbolic comparison I was making. I mean, yeah, you're basically making me feel depressed about the fact that I didn't make the video 6 months ago.
I know.
But, I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm still, like I said, I'm still gonna make the video. I'm gonna show the comparisons leading up to it. It's not gonna look as smart now. I can't do anything about that, but the only aspect, I mean, I have stuff I wrote down that hasn't been said. And technically speaking, some of what I'm saying isn't there. The difference is, technically speaking, Mitsuki didn't actually say what we're talking about. The only thing he really said is, might be a shot in the dark, but I think you're like me. It's the fact that he said you're like me. So now if you make the comparison, it feels like it's obvious, but whatever. I honestly, I'm probably not even gonna do this video for another 2 years at this rate, so what does it matter?
I'm sorry I really had to point that out, just let it really sink in, the fact that it's just, come on now,
I'm like